Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a long-awaited painting video. Now, with all these videos, if you like them, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course drop us a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys, it goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, this video is going to be my interpretation of how to paint the Iron Fanes paint scheme for the Stormcast Eternals. Now, this paint scheme we've really kind of seen with good old Stormbringer magazine, and we've not really seen a great deal of it. It's kind of cropped up once or twice, and so this is very much my interpretation from everything I can find out about the Iron Fanes of how they should look. So this may not be 100% accurate, but this is my take on it. So, you know, they could be a subsex, you never know if it's not right. Anywho, the other thing with this video is the paint list that I'm going to go through with you during this video is as accurate as I can get it to be. Now, the reason for this is I have lost the actual list of paints that I used for this paint scheme, so I've had to go from the video that I have and from looking at the model as closely as possible to actually give us some kind of indication of what paints are on there, and it's not easy to work backwards from that. So take it with a little bit of pinch of salt. There might be some slight differences and slight variations that you can choose for it, but this is from what I can recall how I went about doing it, and we'll have a good look at the mini at the very end. So I've started off with a Praetor mini, and I'm using Corn Red as a base layer. So I undercoated the entire model with this paint. So there is reason for it. It's a decent base coat, and I didn't want to use black or grey or anything like that. I wanted to just go straight with red and reduce the amount of paint layers that are going on it. Now, with that done and dry, you can see what I'm doing is I'm adding them scale mail pieces in. Now, I've done these to be kind of incubi darkness, which is, from what I can recall, exactly how they are kind of mentioned in the Stormbringer magazine. And then it's time to get into all them little nooks and crannies and get all that bit in between the armour, and for that I'm using just a pad and black. It's very simple, it's dead easy to use, and it works a treat. And then with all that done, it's time to paint things like the haft of the axe that he's carrying, and for this I'm using good old Baraknar Burgundy. Another simple paint that we got with the magazine, so it's dead easy to use, and it brings a bit of a difference, so it's a bit more of a kind of darker burgundy-ish leather, which is pretty cool. Now, the Iron Fanes do have silver helms, so for this I'm using, of course, lead belcher paint. This is a darker silver, obviously, so it works very nicely for this paint scheme. And then for things like the kind of the scroll work coming off the haft of the axe, I'm using Wraithbone, which is generally my go-to anyway for this type of part of the mini. So a nice bit of Wraithbone over all of it. It does take a few coats because it's going over a dark pigment, but it works very well. And then there are the gold accents for the weaponry. So for this, obviously we're just using Retributor armour. It's dead easy, dead simple. It's one of the more basic paints for Stormcast Eternals, but it works a treat and it adds a little bit of difference to it, which is exactly what you want it to do. With all them gold bits painted, it's time to start actually using some washes, and for this I'm using Carpe Crimson, or at least I believe it's Carpe Crimson. It may be Reikland Flesh Shade, but I've got a funny feeling it's Carpe Crimson. In all honesty, it's one of the paints that I cannot remember which one was used. And with that painted, it's time to go over things like the metals and that chainmail, and for that I'm just using Null Oil. It's dead easy, dead simple, and one of the most versatile kind of washes that you'll ever have in your palette. And then it's time to move on to that cloak. So for the cloak, I'm actually doing a base layer of grey cere. Now I do go over this cloak a couple of times with grey cere, and that's because I thought that this should be a whitish cloak or a light coloured cloak, and that is everything that I can find online for it. To add to that white though, instead of using some shades or anything like that or contrast paints, I actually used just Corax white over the top and didn't go into any of the recesses with the Corax white. So it stands out a little bit better, it has a bit of a different look, but it works exactly the same as using, say, like Apothecary white or anything like that. And then you want to do some edge highlights, so for that I'll just use White Scar. Dead easy, a nice bright white, brings out all them little bits of kind of highlights that you should be doing, and them little edges that work very, very nicely. And then moving back to that scroll work, just using some Seraphim Sepia to wash over it. It works very, very nicely. It gives it a really kind of aged look, and it also does exactly the same if you're using it on things like bones or anything like that as well. And then it's time to do some edge highlights on the armour, although I'm not getting it in camera very well. So for this I'm just using Wild Rider Red. So I did go back over the good old armour sections with Khorne Red to kind of bring it back to kind of life after using that shade. So now I'm using Wild Rider Red to just bring out the edge highlights. So makes it very, very different. The other things I did do with this, which didn't get recorded, is there are some slight accents and stuff like that on the Baraknar Burgundy, which I believe this is a good old Slanesh Grey, if I remember rightly, and we also have some Stormhost Silver over things like the edge of the blades and the kind of the sharper edges of any of the metal work, and that's generally about it, in all honesty. So I think this works very, very well. It's a pretty decent paint scheme. It's actually a fairly straightforward paint scheme as well for the Stormcast Eternals, and a more unique one. So really, really good stuff. I did genuinely like it. It's not quite the lines of Sigmar, which is my preferred faction, so kind of Stormhost, but yeah, does exactly what it needs to do. And obviously there's a little bits of detail that you're going to use things like Mephiston Red on the gems and stuff like that on the top of the axe, but otherwise pretty good paint job, and it works very, very well. It's a nice little Stormhost colour as well, so it works pretty cool. Now that is it from me for this video. Obviously there will be other things, and there's other things in the pipeline that we will eventually get to. It just takes a while to record because there's so much to it, and it'll be a big video as well, in all honesty. So thank you very, 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 very much for watching, and yeah, I will see you sometime soon. Bye bye now.